Today's story is about a woman who stood up against her in-laws. Who had the audacity to suggest that she switch houses with her brother-in-law? Simply because she doesn't have children. How can people be so shameless and bold? What exactly happened? Let's delve into this story together. Please subscribe and like our channel.
Hello. I'm a newlywed woman in my early 30s. I've been married for just over a year. I couldn't understand why my in-laws seemed to dislike me. However, I recently figured it out. I would appreciate your comments on whether my suspicion is correct. I graduated from a university in a region, while my brother-in-law graduated from a 4-year university in Seoul. He subtly belittled me because of my academic background. Even though I only spoke kindly to him, the return was sarcasm and disregard. We work at the same company, albeit in different subsidiaries, and our salaries are similar. He often suggested that there should be a difference in salary and work speed, depending on the level of one's university. My parents run an interior design company, and both of them finished their education at high school. As far as I know, there were more people with a high school diploma than college graduates in my parents' generation. My father-in-law is a college graduate, and my mother-in-law is a high school graduate. My father-in-law is a civil servant nearing retirement. My mother-in-law and brother-in-law subtly belittled my parents' educational background several times. I couldn't express my anger, because their comments were on the border of being offensive. When we got married, my husband's family contributed $30, and my family contributed $70 to purchase our newlywed house. We paid for our wedding gifts with the money we saved. My parents did the interior design of our new home as a wedding gift, refusing to accept any payment. The house is in my name. The money my husband contributed was similar to the combined cost of interior design and wedding gifts. That's why my husband suggested the house be in my name. But my brother-in-law insisted it should be cooned. My brother-in-law often showed an authoritative attitude, claiming his seniority as the older sibling. However, when we dined out with the entire family, we almost always paid for the meal. If he wanted to be treated as an elder, shouldn't he pay for the meal as well? I once told my brother-in-law about an experience I had in college. I had a senior who acted like a know-it-all and wanted to split the bill evenly when he went out to eat or drink with juniors. I found it ridiculous. My brother-in-law didn't seem to realize that I was referring to him. If he's so smart and graduated from a prestigious university, he should be able to understand this much. While my parents were doing the interior work for our newlywed home for free, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law had a lot to say. They commented about everything from the color of the wallpaper to the structure of the sink. I couldn't understand how they could behave that way, knowing that my parents were doing it for free. My parents spoke kindly to them and did everything their way. Honestly, neither my husband nor I could say anything to my dad. We just thought he would take care of it all and didn't say anything. On the day of the housewarming, my mother-in-law inspected the interior, as if she was doing a thorough review, and then said, "It turned out better than I thought." Can you believe that? My parents worked for nearly 3 weeks for free. I was so angry, but I didn't know how to express why I was angry. So I couldn't get angry. I should have just bluntly said something illogical and rude. Then I would have slept well for a few days. Once my brother-in-law said that there's a difference in work ability, depending on the university one graduates from. That comment annoyed me, but I held my tongue, because I didn't want to hear that I was getting angry out of insecurity. Then I said to him that our division head, who only has a high school diploma, is being acknowledged at the company. He laughed at me, saying that he was talking about the general case, not exceptional cases. He said it was a narrow-minded idea to talk as if what I've seen is everything. Then, he started explaining the influence of parents' education levels on their children. According to him, because my parents only have high school diplomas, I'm narrow-minded, but since his father has a college degree, he has a broad perspective. I don't understand how he can show off so elegantly. He seems to think that it's not showing off, but stating facts when he talks like that. I felt that they disliked me without reason, which made me dislike my mother-in-law and brother-in-law as well. It's frustrating when someone dislikes you and you don't know why. If my mother-in-law and brother-in-law were completely irrelevant to me, I wouldn't mind, but since they're my husband's mother and sister, I can't just ignore them. I feel pretty stuck. I've always wondered why my mother-in-law and brother-in-law disliked me. But due to an absurd request from my in-laws, I figured out why. Our house is about 130 square meters with 4 rooms. My brother-in-law lives in a 3-room house and has 2 elementary school-aged sons. Our house, my in-laws' house, and my brother-in-law's house are all in the same neighborhood. Out of the blue, my mother-in-law suggested that we switch houses with my brother-in-law's family. She said my brother-in-law was taking on too much debt to move, and since we planned on having a child a few years later, we should switch houses with them. She reasoned that now that my brother-in-law's youngest child is in elementary school, each child should have their own room. But I didn't see how that was any of our business. My husband was very annoyed about this. Even if this house was a gift from his parents, he had no intention of switching houses with his sister. He was really irritated that he was being asked to give up the house, which was essentially a gift from his parents, to his sister. Why would I want to switch houses with my brother-in-law, who always subtly insulted and ignored me whenever I saw her? My mother-in-law insisted it wasn't about giving the house to my brother-in-law, and that the house would remain in our names. She just kept insisting that we switch houses. I was against it. A few days later, my mother-in-law asked us to come to her house, so we went together. My brother-in-law's family was also there. My mother-in-law brought up the topic again, and it was even more absurd this time. She had discussed it with my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, and they decided they would give us some money as a lease deposit if we switched houses with my brother-in-law's family. They weren't asking us to live there for free. They said we were a couple living alone, and my brother-in-law's family had 2 children who were now in elementary school. These were the reasons we should switch houses with them. My husband was really angry. He asked why his parents and sister were making decisions about our house, and angrily said that it wasn't possible. But do you know what's even more absurd? My mother-in-law called my husband selfish. She said we didn't need such a big house, and if my brother-in-law's family needed a bigger house, we could just switch. She insisted they weren't asking us to do it for free, and they would give us a lease deposit. I asked my mother-in-law how much the lease deposit would be. She said it would be 200 million won, approximately 170,000 US. Our apartment lease is 800 million won, approximately 680,000 US. So I asked if 200 million won is considered a lease deposit. I told her it wouldn't even cover the deposit for monthly rent. My mother-in-law then questioned if the amount of money was important among family members. My husband retaliated, saying it was only natural, and questioned why they were behaving in such a manner. My mother-in-law insisted that they were doing this for mutual benefits. Fed up, I told her, "Mother, there's no point in talking to brother-in-law about this. The house is in my name. I absolutely won't change houses." She retorted, asking if we hadn't co-signed. To which I informed her that at my husband's behest, the house was solely in my name. She questioned why, when she had contributed money, The house was solely in my name. My husband explained that the money he had saved only covered our wedding and interior decoration costs. Hence, the house was under my name. My mother-in-law was furious, asking who gave us the right to do so. I replied that it was our house given by my parents. So it was only right that it was under my name. Then, I turned to my brother-in-law and told him that our parents, despite only having a high school education, earned well, and were able to afford a house for their daughter. However, he was envious of his younger sibling's house, which our parents couldn't afford for him. It occurred to me then, that perhaps the reason my brother-in-law looked down on me was because my family was well off. Anyways, we made it clear to them that we had no intention of swapping houses. My husband warned that if they brought up this issue again, we would never visit them. After that, they never mentioned swapping houses again. However, I occasionally bring up the fact that my brother-in-law had the audacity to ask us to switch houses. Initially, he didn't understand why it was such a big deal. But when he asked his colleagues, they questioned if my brother-in-law was mentally ill. I suggested that he should ask his office mates if he was still unsure. Since then, he doesn't say much when I bring up the house issue. I think the real reason my brother-in-law harbored baseless hatred towards me was due to my family's prosperity. If that's the case, it's really absurd.
Why does the reason even matter? What kind of mindset must the brother-in-law have to ask the very person he looked down upon to switch houses? While the in-laws and brother-in-law are problematic, what kind of person is the brother-in-law's husband? Is he the type to let his wife do all the work and just stand by, taking it as it comes, whether it turns out good or bad? In my opinion, the mother-in-law is also quite a disagreeable person.